In the past few decades, drones have effectively cemented themselves in modern culture as an essential tool used by the United States military in combat and surveillance all over the world. These drones have given the military the ability to conduct airstrikes in any locations at any time all over the world. Drones taking flight in the Middle East have become commonplace as the United States ramps up the number of drone strikes against terrorist organizations, hoping to eliminate them. However, drone strikes are risky in the sense that they put many innocent lives in jeopardy as explosive bombs are hurled towards the ground as targets by drones. Many believe that the risks of potentially hitting innocent targets is worth it as long as terrorist threats are being eliminated, while many others strongly disagree and believe that the United States must regulate their use of drones. The war on terror in the Middle East is a very serious topic that is being discussed by most presidential candidates, but most overlook drones.
Many candidates are focusing on issues such as immigration, wealth inequality, and drug use.
What I've done is laid out what we would do is secure the border and enforce the laws. Once we do that, then the president will work on whatever happens after that.
We have to reform our immigration system, and we needed to do it yesterday.
And I said, we need to build a wall.
Absolutely, and I think that we ought to look where income inequality seems to be the worst.
Absolutely, but the truth is that for the last 40 years, the great middle class of this country has been disappearing.
This guy wants to raise your taxes to 90%.
And when they're the 16-year-old drug addict in the Florida County lockup, that life is just as precious as the life in the womb.
I do support the use of medical marijuana.
So 40 years ago, I smoked marijuana.
The U.S. drone program is a topic that is frequently overlooked, and many controversial aspects of the drone program are unknown to the general public. We talked to Paige Fairchilds, the librarian at a local high school, and asked him about his beliefs regarding the lethal use of drone strikes in the Middle East.
I do think that all life is precious. However, the world is not ideal, and sometimes we have to use methods that are less than ideal. And when you have something that's really asymmetric warfare being conducted, then if they won't abide by the rules, you can't abide by the rules either. I see it as part of a larger whole in terms of our foreign policy and how we conduct warfare. It's not a singularly, it's not a make or break issue for me. But do I think it's important? Absolutely.
Next, we talked to Ryan Teague, a local history teacher with a background in foreign affairs, and asked him about his thoughts regarding the use of drones in the war on terror.
It is a weird thing because we need to have more clear-cut defined rules that aren't as gray, vague, whatever on who we can and can't strike and what type of what are the checklist or parameters that allows us to, let's say, go ahead and make the strike, because it does seem at times we almost use that as a fail-safe, like, oh, we think there's problems there, instead of sending soldiers in to risk our guys, let's just fly the drone over and drop $1 million missile and see what happens. It definitely needs to be a part of, if the drones are the way that we're going to continue to go, and it seems like, I'm not going to sit here and say they're going away. It's just too valuable of a resource, I think. It allows us to be in more places than we can. But there definitely needs to be some type of control with it. A candidate's stance on it, I think, is important. I mean, one, I think the American public needs to be more aware of it. The way that I think our media and stuff portrays things now, they make it seem like certain, like just take Obama, for example, isn't doing a lot on the war on terror. But if you actually look at his drone program, he's being really active all over the Middle East, and not just in the key places that the news focus on. And he has been for his whole career. I mean, I know he's done like quadruple or even more than that the drone strikes that Bush did in his time in office. And I think it should be a part of your policy if that's the way you're going to approach it. And the American public needs to be more aware of what's going on, because I think we only think of our war on terror as our guys being in harm's way and what we're doing there, and we kind of gloss over the fact that we are flying these things all over God's creation, striking targets at a pretty regular clip. Many times, I'm a firm believer, I think many times they do have solid intel and stuff, because there are boots on the ground doing the work there, but it is also, it's got that negative drawback. I mean, we're at the weird era with all of this. Our weapons are so good that we can literally fly a missile almost into the door of a place. So we think we should be able to do everything cleanly. I mean, 50, 60 years ago in World War II, we'd have been happy if we got a bomb within 100 yards or something. Like, sweet, that's awesome. and we were wholesale bombing cities. So we're in a weird time, but I definitely think Canada should address it. I mean, if we're going to take this stance that we need to stop the terrorists, need to stop ISIS, ISIL, or whatever letters we're using, we need to have the defined thing, like, this is what I'm going to do to stop this, and this is how I'm going to use it. And the drone program is an effective tool, or can be, if it's used right. I think we do need to have more of a statement, not just on what's right and wrong, but how they plan to implement it and so on.
It's obvious that there are two sides to this complex issue, each with valid arguments and concerns about the use of drone strikes in the Middle East.
Because of the relationship between Pakistan intelligence services and the CIA, and some personal relationships between our leaders and theirs, the drones became how America could chase the bad guys across the border to Pakistan. And then that became the favored use, the favored weapon across the Middle East as well.
Many believe that the risks of the widespread use of drone strikes are outweighed by the strike's integral role in the protection of American lives, while others argue that drones cause unnecessary death in the Middle East and create a negative image of America for those in the areas of the strikes. Are the current laws regarding the carrying out of drone strikes strict enough? Should we increase our use of drones in order to further protect American lives? There is no clear resolution to this topic in sight, as politicians turn a blind eye towards the controversial laws and usage of drones. This is why the current presidential candidates need to bring drones into the public eye. Candidates must take a solid stance on this issue and allow voters to decide for themselves if the risks of drone strikes are worth the protection they offer U.S. citizens and interests.